Cool. So, introduce yourself.
My name is Grant Olsen.
And you played at
Yes.
Treefort in Phantahex?
Yes.
What was your favorite touring band that you saw this weekend?
I loved seeing Terra Pigeon Dance Revolt. That dude's crazy.
Yeah, I heard
It was
that was
super
crazy.
fun.
It's awesome. And your favorite favorite local band that you saw?
Oh man, there were a few. I really loved because it was their first show. It was really exciting to see Bad 90s. That was actually great. Like,
Yeah.
I know.
At El Cora?
Yeah. I was at Alcora. It was
Totally.
really nice. The stage set was really interesting. The way they translated the music that they make to a live setting was really pretty exciting. Actually,
For sure.
I loved it.
Tyler Walker did the images on that and did a pretty good job.
Yeah, well, and having just the screen where you just saw the silhouettes and
For sure. Yeah.
you know, it really was
pretty
pretty
nice.
effective. You know, especially for a project that there are a lot of projects that are more dynamic visually in terms of guitars and jumping and all
Totally.
the hullabaloo. But it changed the way you would see a more sort of electro-based project,
Sure.
and gave it a lot more energy and a lot more excitement. Even without the visuals, although the visuals were fantastic, just the idea of the screen and the silhouettes and the movement that was happening made it a lot more
Totally.
exciting. So
Awesome. I did see a picture of Dave and Sarah
Dancing.
reaching out with their hands.
totally, yeah.
It was
I mean, like,
I was like, wow, I
Yeah,
wondered
from
if that
where-
was planned.
I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, that's the thing is like from where I was standing, I could mostly see Sarah and Eric. But yeah, just really, it was a really effective way to translate that sort of music and what they do, which is so nice,
Totally.
into this other thing, which really. I've seen bands like that before, and it can definitely fall flat. Where like you've got
For sure.
just one person sort of with programmed stuff, and then one person sort of singing, or two
Yeah.
people singing, and it was I don't know. Plus, I love all those guys, so it's pretty great.
Good people.
Even you.
Totally. Oh. Were there any bands that you would say were up and coming or that you didn't know about that were kind of outstanding or anything like that?
I loved. Excuse me, one moment.
No problem.
I loved seeing the Warm Hair.
The one
That was so great.
Where was that at?
That was at El Cora Shrine,
Cora
and
Shrine,
there's band. I think if I remember right, they're from Long Island, or at least the main guy is from Long Island. I don't remember what it said in the schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like this perfect, like rather than like imitating classic rock,
Yeah.
it was this guy who you could tell like his emotional world was created by the feelings of classic rock. When you hear like whatever it is, so whether it's like Duane Allman or playing his guitar and like really like feeling it, or whatever, and most people can just sort of write that off and say like, oh well, that's just a song, and sort of separate it, but like you could tell it really created his emotional identity, and
Totally.
like it was amazing to watch.
That's
like he really just put everything into it. It was wonderful.
Crazy. The Warm Hair.
The Warm Hair.
That's nuts.
It's
I
pretty
wish I would have saw
incredible.
that.
It was great. I mean, I also, I have a soft spot for classic
Yeah,
rock,
of course.
but it's nice when when you see people take something seriously, like where it's not like it has nothing to do with this pose. They genuinely believe what it is they're playing and what it is they're saying, and when it's something as emotionally charged as that,
Totally.
it's you can't have that be a put on, and it was really amazing. So
Totally. That's awesome.
there you go.
They need to get in for next year, possibly. Which brings me to my next question.
Sure.
Next year, have any some names you might want to throw out for reference for next year?
For traveling bands?
Yeah, or just anything, like something, a couple things you might want to see next year, traveling or local.
I don't know. I was really, I mean, clearly it's something you can't replicate. The thing that happened at Skatefort,
Totally.
with the guy from Sidune.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed. We were supposed to do that, but it was all bands.
Yeah.
And my bandmate was teaching electronics at Hackfort. And so it would have just left me in the weeds.
For sure, yeah.
So we couldn't do it, sadly. But that was beautiful.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of footage from that.
And it was really like just being there and being able to sort of move through the crowd. So you would be closer to some bands at different points and hear how
that's crazy.
They all interacted with one another.
Totally.
That really was moving.
That's awesome.
As far as touring bands, there are all kinds. Obviously, like I like all kinds of different stuff.
For sure.
I don't think they can get too big, obviously, but they can, they've done really well with getting bands that are really interesting in terms of getting not larger acts, but, acts that are doing something unique and doing something special. I don't know, who knows what everyone costs and who knows what the budget is. Without budget, but someone in that same fantasy world,
Totally.
I'd love to see Prince Rama play.
Yeah.
They're wonderful, and they do this really interesting blend of, this art, that is inextricable from the music that they make, and so it's exciting to, sort of see their process, both in video form and on records, and it would be wonderful to see them live. So that would be, for me, that would be exciting, and also just, seeing more and more, just like this year, seeing more local artists, not just represented, but, seeing the crowds going like they did this year. They really were pretty happy. I was happy with our reception. Every venue I went to where I would see my friends' bands play, they were always, if not full, they were definitely, very, much more full than they would be on a normal, Thursday night or Friday night. People were really out, and
they were,
and giving people not a lot more respect. I feel like than usual. There's Boise sometimes has this reputation as a town of talkers. Yeah. And I don't. I do feel like it's up to bands to perform above that and to create an environment where the crowd will be respectful, but there's also something to be said for the way that this whole thing was set up, that it really did create that environment of respect. And so you could go see someone, maybe you'd go see a loud band at the main stage, and people were paying attention, and there's always going to be a few people who are talking, but it really was, but that was more of a concert setting. Yeah. But even in the small clubs, or, quieter acts, like, I saw, for example, what Grandma Kelsey at the Shrine. Yeah. And that it was really wonderful to just be able to stand there and hear what she was doing, and the same would go for anyone. You're at this place where
see people paying attention,
and really giving the artists the respect that they deserve, which was pretty fantastic. Totally. I love that environment, and I like that. I hope, you always hope that will sort of plant that seed in people's minds where they'll show up to shows and really give the bands their attention. So
for sure, hopefully Treefort could be that little catalyst to get everyone kind of thinking in that way.
It's it's not everything, it's not the end all. There's obviously there's still 361 other days in the year, but it was a really positive experience for me anyway. I was impressed with how the bands, not just how the bands played, but how everything worked so well. Every venue I went to, all the bands were on time, the sound was good, the bands were quick on and off the stage,
They had it down.
I mean, it really was pretty sharp. I was stunned by that, and you add that to the crowd's reception of it, and I mean, it really was this, I don't even know. It was ideal. It was one of those things where,
For sure.
I can't think of a time where, I can't remember a time where I played at 5 o'clock on a Sunday, and we did. We played at 5 o'clock on a Sunday, and it's still light out. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And we had, I couldn't see the back of the room. It was great. There were all these people there. They were all wonderful. They're really kind. And I couldn't have asked for a better experience just for my band alone. And I'm sure that is true for, a lot of the people I spoke with, a lot of the people that I met. It's just a really nice thing. And also as an artist, I mean, I don't know if you had this as well or if you've heard this from other people, but, having the artist lounge and having the ability to just walk around and just talk to people and meet people from all over,
Oh, yeah.
I was getting a sandwich and met, the bass player for Cody Chestnut, and then ran into Delicate Steve and Neil from Terror Pigeon Dance Revolt. And all these people are just wonderful, and we talked about, I talked with those guys about Skatefort, and they were wonderful about, that whole experience with Cy Dune. They were, all this thing. I mean, it was really, you get to really interact with people from all over, and they've all really given so much to be here, and they stuck around too. Like they weren't just hanging out. Someone was my friend who's in Magic Sword. Came up to me after we played, and he told me that the guy from Slow Magic came in and was, and they were talking about our set and whatever,
awesome.
So I mean, and it's not so much the self-flattery, where you're like, oh man, dudes from those bands were talking.
Yeah.
It's more like, those people were hanging out.
This is what's supposed to be happening in the community.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of times where like I've been to shows, or and the touring acts are, I mean, obviously they're worn out. I mean, that's hard. Being on the road for that long.
Totally.
They don't stick around for the opening act. They get into town, they load in, maybe do a sound check, go get some food, get some coffee, sit in the van or the bus, and then come in and do their set.
For sure.
But in this case, I mean, I'm sure this is true for almost every venue. You run into people, and they were at shows, and they really were there to see them. They weren't just there to, like, do their deal. Like, they really cared. And, whether it was, the metal bands, whether, Mike Scheidt or, from Vol or... Chuck, the drummer from Uzela, they were going and seeing bands of all kinds. The dude from every band was seeing other bands from all over, and really giving and really like taking it in as well. I mean, I think it's I loved it. I really loved the experience.
Like, I know we're all local, but I do like to know, what you think about this band. It's like a lot of people. I like when people from like different I like having conversations with the hip hop guys, like in dedicated servers, about bands like Magic Sword or
and that's
Bad
the
90s.
thing, is there's all this stuff where like it's not even just crossover. It's like I think on some level, if you're a musician, you're a musician.
Totally.
It doesn't matter. We don't. For me anyway, and I don't know if it's true for everyone, but I don't just listen to music that sounds like what I do. That would be weird. And I'm sure that's true for almost everyone. Like Mike Scheidt, for example, from Yob, he's in this other band, Vol, which is totally different and crazy. And then I saw him a few months ago, and he was traveling through town, and he was playing an acoustic guitar and singing Townes Van Zandt songs. So, just that alone is a guy who like genuinely cares about music, and I think that's true for almost everyone who participated in the festival.
Totally.
It was I'm still pretty stunned by the amount of
Nice to meet you, man.
Easy, man.
See you, man. Oh, that door's locked, kid.
Easy, man.
Anyway, I was very impressed, and it was really meaningful to me Awesome.
Awesome.
As a musician and just as a person who loves music.
Totally.
Even if we hadn't been playing, it was really wonderful to experience it and to see all the things that happened. So
it's awesome. Any favorite memory from this weekend? Anything that comes to mind? Maybe a set, friend you saw.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that was nice too. I saw a bunch of friends from all over. There was a friend of mine who came over from, I think he lives over near the Tetons.
Yeah.
Came over for the festival. Awesome. Saw a few friends who I'd met last year and who had been in other bands. Mm-hmm. This band Psychic Rights, who came down from Moscow.
Awesome. I'm playing with them next week.
Wonderful. This guy Dan, who's in Wooden Indian Burial Ground.
Awesome.
Just all
Great
these
people.
wonderful people who I'd met, and we were able to connect again.
It's awesome.
And that
I love that.
That to me is almost as much of the festival as like, I loved seeing the bands, but there were a lot of times where I'd just take an hour off because I just was running into people who I really wanted to spend time with. All these really great people. Like I said, my friend John from, Eastern Idaho, I never see that guy. And here he is. And he's just here because he loves the music, and he's here because he loves the environment and the atmosphere. Got a motel room right downtown so he could just be in it,
So great.
It's pretty great.
That's probably my favorite too.
One sec. You are listening to Radio Boise. You just heard Hank Ballard was shagging on the grandstand. I love that guy. Later he ended up being more of a James Brown sort of prodigy, but when he started, playing more straightforward soul music and, dance, R&B sort of stuff. Super fun. Before that, Pounds of Soul by Betty Bibbs. Continental 4 with The Way I Love You. I'm So Glad by the Herb Johnson and the Impacts. Oh, that sweet one by the Rascals, My World. That is so nice. Lepai by Amadou and Miriam, the Malian beautiful couple. Oh, man. Worth looking up their story if you have a minute. And Sid Arthur opened that set up with a little bit of sweetness in his song Promise Me. Anyway, we've got about 15 minutes left, and then Cameron's coming on with Pumpkin Pie. Oh, man. Stick around. But for now, we're going to play a little bit of Joe Meek style lady music. Producer from the 60s, sort of simultaneously working with Phil Spector, where Phil Spector was working in America, Joe Meek was working in England. Also, Joe Meek was an insane person, and you should look up his story because it was horrifying at best. The end. Mostly the end part. Anyway, this is Jenny Moss, one of his acts, and the song's called Please Don't Say Goodbye. Here on Radio.
The horrifically eccentric.
Was that on air? Was it?
You talking?
Yeah.
I think so.
Could you hear it through the monitors?
I
could hear it in my headphones.
I thought I could. Maybe I couldn't though.
I could hear it in my headphones.
Oh, then it was on.
I don't know. It seemed like I hit this off, but I must have hit on. I don't know.
Well, if you did it, I got it on tape. Because that was great. I love Joe Meek.
That story is...
Isn't it?
Out of control, dude.
I want my band to cover I Hear a New World.
Yeah, that's...
Possibly even the whole album.
Oh, yeah?
That'd be amazing.
I just know, like...
I hear a new world.
Yeah, like just murdering his landlady, then committing suicide.
Yeah.
She was going to turn him in for being gay.
He could communicate with the dead, Buddy Holly.
Yeah, ape shit.
Crazy.
Ape shit. But great.
Phenomenal producer. What he did.
And like thinking that Phil Spector stole everything he knew from him.
Back in his apartment.
Yeah.
Some crazy stuff.
Insane.
Yeah. My brother, we started getting into psychedelic music and stuff kind of at the same time. So like he came over to my house. This was like 4 years ago. And he was just like, you gotta like listen to this Joe Meek guy. And like, I'm gonna leave the house, read up on him, and just read the story.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it just keeps getting crazier and crazier as he like got older. And you're just like,
totally.
why didn't someone help him at some point?
And then, like, he gets all of his royalties back weeks after he dies.
Yeah, Telstar, which is like one of the best-selling singles in the history. It's just like
such a crazy story, man. It's a Twilight Zone movie.
Oh my god.
Well, Grant, thank you. I'm glad we ended on Joe Meek.
Oh man, no problem.
So, what would you give Treefort out of 10?
Out of 10? I don't really. I'm not a judger.